Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a quick spin through the biggest topics in the sport. Once again, it is Gorgeous George and Goze from MMA Junkie Radio that are with me. So let's get them on the clock, guys. All right, after UFC 247, Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes 2, it looked like it was a near certainty, man. There was all the buzz following the controversial decision. But this past week at UFC on ESPN Plus 25, Jan Blachowicz scored a devastating knockout of Corey Anderson, and Jon Jones was sitting cage-shot. He went right over to him and said, are we going to do this or what? Now, listen, Jan is 7-1 in his last 8 fights, and he's got Jon's attention. He was standing up on a chair looking at him saying he won it. Who is most deserving of this title shot right now with Jon Jones? Let's put 3 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Oh, man, there's so many different ways of looking at this fight. There's so many different things you can do. If you look at it from the UFC's perspective, you would imagine that Dominic Reyes did enough to get a rematch. But if that was exactly where they wanted to go, then they would have probably announced that before this fight. They waited to see what happened in this fight, which means it has some kind of value. So at that point, now you look at it and you go, well, Blachowicz did everything you would want out of a title contender, and he got in Jon Jones' face. And if you look at Jon Jones' reaction, he loved it. He needs a dance partner. He needs a guy that's going to talk like that. From the UFC's perspective, again, do you want to give Dominic Reyes maybe back-to-back losses against the champ? Then what do you do with him? It's a very sticky situation. You have Santos in the wing. I think you actually go with Blachowicz on this one. I wouldn't be shocked. If I'm Reyes, I'd say, you know what? The one thing that's been hurting Jon Jones lately is father time. Let's put a little bit of father time on him, and then I'll come and pick the pieces. That's what I would do. Man,
that's interesting. You know what's funny is I hate to say this, I'd kind of forgotten about the fact that Thiago Santos is still in the mix too, right? He's been sitting out for so long. I was thinking this was a two-horse race. Now we got that third man in there as well that deserves it. So, George, let me ask you, Jon Jones is obviously going to have some say in what happens here. The UFC is ultimately deciding, but he's got some juice. He's been around for a while. Now, backstage, he talked to reporters. Matt Erickson was there. He said, after I fight Jan, then maybe it will be a rematch with Dominic. So at least at that moment, he was thinking that he was going with Jan. But, there's a lot of scenarios on the table. If you're in Jones's camp, if you're in that side, what advice are you giving him? What do you tell him who he should be fighting next?
All right, so if Jon asked me, I'm Abe Kawa, I'd say, hey, pocketbook, we got to go with Reyes, the rematch. That thing was hot. But if he says, I want to build on that legacy, then I think you go with Jan Blachowicz first, and then maybe build up to Reyes. I think the rematch will get big. I'm telling you, once that stadium is finished across the freeway here from the Mandalay Bay, there's some big fights that are going to be available to the UFC in a stadium, enclosed with a roof. Doesn't matter if it's summertime or anything like that. And, of course, you got Izzy, Miocic, and all these different possibilities. I'm glad you brought up Thiago Santos, because that's another guy we cannot overlook. He actually took him to a split decision, whereas Reyes lost by unanimous decision. Either way, there was arguments to be made on both guys' behalves that they won the fight, but they didn't. Jon Jones is the winner record. So I'm thinking of those three, Blachowicz, Santos, and Reyes, Jon Jones needs to face two of them before we even think about Adesanya or Miocic or any other types of possibilities, because the light heavyweight division is popping again, man. I really, really love it.
Yeah, man, there's some interesting fights on the table. I like the fact that Jan said he'll wait. Jan did the right thing, man. He went in, he delivered in the cage. He delivered on the mic, man. I didn't think he was going to be able to jump ahead of Dominic Reyes. I kind of feel like in some ways maybe he did, but I like the fact that he's saying, I will wait. So, I like Dominic. I got to go with the rematch, man. You guys make some great cases, but I just want to see that rematch, man. So some interesting times for Jon Jones, to say the least. All right, listen, the co-main event, Diego Sanchez. He was awarded a win via disqualification. There was an illegal knee, and he was unable to continue. Now, Sanchez, no question, man. He's a legend of the sport, but there seem to be a lot of questions out there. People saying, he was, quote, looking for a way out of that fight. It certainly wasn't going his way. But ultimately, he walks away with the win. George, talk to me about the situation, man. What did you take out? Was it handled correctly? What was going on? Let's put 2 minutes on the clock. Have at it.
Yeah, I think, for one, right away the referee went through his protocol, and you could just hear him saying illegal, intentional. And once that happens, there is no contest, folks. You can forget about all that. It's just whether the damaged fighter can continue. Now, look, Diego Sanchez has given us a long, storied career. His toughness and heart has never been questioned, and he was concussed at that moment. All right, he was the recipient of a knee that not only probably concussed him, and those other knees he took throughout the fight also probably had something to do with it, but he also had a gash, I believe it was this side, over his head, and he's trying to process it. Who knows what he's thinking? I think it's just a little mini conversation that he had that doesn't sit well with people. A lot of people, the naysayers out there, are thinking, oh, he's trying to figure out what's best. Yeah, no shit. But You know, in the end, I give him a pass, man. That guy's tough. He's been in there. I know that fight wasn't going his way, but he was the one that was struck by an illegal knee, and that's that. He decided he couldn't continue. He says he couldn't see. I don't know if that meant I can't see 100% or I'm seeing double or the blood's trickling in my eye. I don't know what it meant, but Diego Sanchez, man, I'm with you. If he couldn't go, he couldn't go.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It seems like if anybody deserves a pass, it's Diego Sanchez. Goze, what did you take out of this? I mean, did you see a guy looking for a way out, or could he have said something different or better? What is wrong that people are coming with these question marks?
Well, I think long are gone are the days of pride, right? Like, I don't even know why we had to see this so much on this card. If you look at a guy like Diego Sanchez, though, it was really the visual that people had problems with. We're used to seeing people fall over in this situation, roll around for a bit. With him, really, like, he almost had to be reminded that actually happened. So when he stood up and he wasn't wobbling around, I think it was just aesthetically the way it looked. But you can't question a guy like that. That's one of the last guys in the UFC you can question.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, if the guy's asking, hey, is there going to be a disqualification? I mean, that doesn't mean he can see. What if he can't see and he's just saying, man, is it worth me going back out there and trying to fight? I'm blind right now. I don't know, man. I think he deserves a pass. This is Diego Sanchez we're talking about. All right, listen, it certainly wasn't our big focus of the weekend, but Ray Borg, man, he picked up a win, but he also missed weight for the fourth time in his career. Now, 3 of those misses were at flyweight, and he's 3-0 in those fights. Now, listen, I've been a big Ray Borg supporter, man. He's been through a lot in his career. There's no question about it. And he's taken full responsibility for everything that happened here. But he also said he understands if the UFC cuts him, he's okay with that. Or if they make him go up to bantamweight, he'll understand that too. So what should the UFC do with Ray Borg after missing weight again? Goes 2 minutes.
I think at this point, I would be absolutely shocked if they let him take another flyweight fight. There is the possibility of a cut, but I don't think they'll go that route. I think they make him fight at bantamweight. I think it's something that they definitely have to do. They have to send a message to Ray Borg, but also to the rest of the staff of the UFC to let them know, hey, we also have your guys' backs, your interest as well, because that's an important thing. Like Jon said, that's 3 fights that he won. This is such a dangerous sport to give any type of fighter any advantage, whether how slight it is. It's just not fair, and something has to be done.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little surprised to hear him say he thought it was a possibility that he might be cut. I don't think that'll happen. Again, he's gone through so much over the years, man. I don't see how you can't support him a little bit and give him a little bit of leeway. But the idea of moving him up to bantamweight, I think that's only fair to his competition. You know, George, what do you think? I mean, again, 4 times is pretty egregious, man. That's a lot.
Yeah, you know, if he's going to stay at flyweight, all right, then I think he needs to make a commitment forward as well. Hey, look, I'm going to spend a month at the PI, or I hired Mike Dolce or one of the other noted nutritionists, you know, and say, look, this is how serious I am, and this is what I plan on doing. Because otherwise, I agree with Goze. I think he has to become a bantamweight. I think he's just got to take that penalty but not get cut. So stay within the organization. I think he's UFC caliber. He's proven it. So he's got to make a serious statement. Otherwise, 35.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple fix, right? And he says, I can fight at 35. I know I can make some adjustments there. And even this past week, he said, listen, it wasn't a bad weight cut. It was just something weird at the very end. So it does suck if it was just something, odd one time, but it's those previous times before that don't give you that, kind of margin of error, so to speak. So, listen, I like Ray Borg, a good dude. And, of course, we know what he's battled through in his personal life, man. I don't think he needs to be cut, but I think it's only fair to the other competitors in his division that he fights at 135 pounds moving forward. So, all right, listen, former Bellator champ Hector Lombard. It's not MMA, but he did pick up a decision win in his bare knuckle fighting championship debut. And I got to say, look, we covered a little bit of it at MMA Junkie, and the story's got a little bit of traction. Got some page views, got some shares. BKFC, they're 10 events in now. I'm kind of wondering what you guys think about where they stand. I mean, I think for a lot of the time we didn't think they were going to be around, but are maybe they in a position where they can prove everyone wrong and have a little bit of staying power? George, 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, I do believe they can have some staying power because I'll tell you what, in those 10 shows, they've had their crossover Brock Lesnar moment with Paulie Malignaggi coming over. They've also had their Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner fight with the Artem Lobov and Jason Knight fight, the first one. And so, they've already made some strides that I see parallel with what the UFC did. So there's going to be some ups and downs, but I think they're off to a good start. And then guys like Ehlers, who we covered at Cage Warriors, Lombard, who was a champion at Bellator, UFC guy, and all these names that we can kind of like relate to. I'm in, man. I'm looking forward to BKFC at 11.
It's funny, man. You mentioned the names. I think they've made some really smart moves in terms of like who they've gotten. And I mean, yeah, like you said, Malignaggi, that was crazy, and Lobo. I mean, they've done well in the people that they've picked up. I feel like, some people still think it's a little bit brutal, but it is gaining legality everywhere. I mean, they do get cuts. I don't know that's necessarily serious injuries, but, there is some blood involved and some broken hands. Goze, what do you think about the future of bare knuckle? I mean, is this something that's going to stick around?
I love it, and I really do hope it does stick around. I think it's a little too early. The one thing that we need to kind of make sure that doesn't get out of hand are probably the paychecks. I love that there's the avenue for the fighters to go into bare knuckle. The perception of it is that it's very, very brutal. But listen, that was the perception of UFC 1. And if you look at UFC 1 and you look at the progression, the strategies, I mean, look how long it took for people to figure out Royce Gracie. I think that's going to happen in bare knuckle. People are going to come up with good strategies, how to protect their hands, how to really fight these type of fights. This is going to be a completely different sport if we get to bare knuckle 20. I think it's going to look way different than the first 10. But I'm kind of digging it. I love it. I think it's going to go through its own evolution, and I think it's going to be fun for everyone.
It's funny, man. I know I'm getting old because it is brutal, man.
It can be, man.
But it's a new avenue, man. You said paychecks. It's another opportunity for fighters to cash a paycheck, and I think we all want to see that, right? The more opportunities, the better for these combat sports athletes to keep bringing in money. So we'll see. All right, guys, it's UFC 248, next big pay-per-view. It's only 2 weeks away. We thought we were getting Darren Till versus Jared Cannonier, which would have been great because, it would have been a nice number one contender fight probably. Yeah. It would have been a backup for Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero as well. But we know now that Cannonier's out. That's not happening. So we're 2 weeks out. Is there another fight here that makes sense, whether it involves Darren Till or not, that we have in place here? Or do we just roll the dice and hope that no one gets hurt and that everybody makes weight? Goes 2 minutes.
It's so funny that we're even looking at the situation like that. Like, really, it probably should have been Yoel Romero that was the insurance policy for Jared Cannonier when you think about it. Yeah. But that's not where we're at, right? So now we're in a sticky situation with no Jared Cannonier. Whoever you plug in as your insurance policy, which you absolutely need to do at this point, because if you lose that main event, the card's still going to be decent, but it's not going to be great, and that's not what we're used to out here. We need great. So really the names that you can plug in, I mean, like Derek Brunson and Shavazian, they're on that card. Possibly you could do something there. Jack Hermanson maybe. None of it's really going to make sense, but you definitely need an insurance policy. Dana White, get on there, get on the phone. Call Jake from State Farm, whoever you need to. But we need an insurance policy for that fight.
And his khakis.
Yeah, and his khakis.
George, what do you think? I mean, listen, Yoel Romero says, what do you say, he's been making weight since 1893 or something like that. And he says he'll do it here. Hopefully no more breakdancing and splits going along the way that anybody could get hurt. But what do you think, George? I mean, is there another plan that makes sense or another fight that you can do, or do we just roll the dice?
I suppose Shavazian could maybe jump at the opportunity. Look, he's young, and sometimes you're ready and sometimes you're not. But who's going to turn down a shot, especially when the big boss comes to you directly? So that's a small possibility. I like that name, Joker Hermanson, even though he's coming off a loss. Hey, look, things aren't always perfect when these opportunities arise. I was going back to 1999, UFC 199. Remember, Michael Bisping was on the set of a movie when he got the call, and he responded, and he became a world champion. That worked out nicely for him. So maybe Joker. And, of course, one last call to Paulo Costa. Hey, look, dog, I know we overlooked you, but did you maybe make a miraculous Wolverine-esque type of recovery? And if you're ready to go, can you show up? Passport good, the visa good, show up. You know what I mean? Something would be nice because you're right, because this is Vegas. Vegas and LA have gotten screwed in previous years. I don't want them to get screwed. But man, I really love at this point now that Romero's signed. Let's just roll with that fight if they can't sign anything.
Paulo's gonna ask him if they can do it at 220. We'll see. All right, listen, crazy weekend coming up. UFC's in New Zealand. Bellator's got 2 shows, Oklahoma and Ireland. We got Reyes in there. We got LFA. We got all kinds of MMA this weekend. We'll talk about everything that happens next week on Spinning Back Clique.